All right, Bob, I got 4 o'clock.
All right, we'll get the Auburn Water District Trustees meeting of Wednesday, March 19th, 2025 at 4 p.m. We'll bring that to order, and we'll begin with someone like to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of February 19th, 2025.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. No discussion. All in favor? Abstaining. Item 2, financial report. Michael Bailey.
Sure. So my blurb here. So revenue amounts are strong compared to budget, due largely to a positive variance in public fire protection. As we talked about last time, this is due to the timing of billing. We billed 3 months in January 2025. So as we get to March, that'll level out. The increase in miscellaneous revenue this month is due to a $17,000 trading credit that we received for a loader replacement. So that's what's driving that variance there. Expenses are under budget due largely to positive variances in payroll and the UV treatment plant. The payroll variance is being driven by a vacancy in the education and outreach coordinator position that we had budgeted that's since been filled. In addition to that, what's also impacting payroll is the timing of bonus payments and retirement payouts that we have budgeted but haven't occurred yet in 2025. The UV treatment plant expenses remain low compared to budget due to the timing of those expenses coming in. And then cash on hand of $4.1 million is sufficient to service debt and fund existing operations. Happy to answer any questions anyone has on that stuff.
So, education and outreach coordinator, wouldn't that fall under the Water Protection Commission?
Yeah, I believe they're a 50-50 position.
So that position is 100% funded through the Watershed Protection Commission, but they don't have employees, they don't have insurance. We employ the person and we bill 100% of it to the commission. If that makes sense.
Lewiston pays 50 and Auburn pays 50.
Yeah, I understand that, but don't we allocate money to the Watershed Protection Commission?
We do.
So when it gets paid out, doesn't it come out of their account? No,
It does. Yep, that's exactly what's
Think
happening.
of it this way, they give us a budget every year,
Right.
each entity pays half. We employ the person, we send them a bill, they pay it out of that budget that they have.
Which
out of the
includes half our money, half
half
Lewiston's money.
Right.
Yeah.
So wouldn't we have already allocated that money, taken it out of our account, put it in the
We
water,
did.
in the water protection account? So why would it turn up on our report? Because if you've taken the money out and put it in that account. Do you understand what my question is?
I understand it, I'm trying to explain this best I can. So the commission bills us throughout the year. It's not something that January 1 we paid them up here's our half of the year.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so that's how that works with them. 2, we have to budget as a water district to pay the money to hire the person, but we also budget for revenue coming in from the commission to fund the project.
Mm-hmm.
So this was a weird accounting thing. Mike and I went circles on it when we put the budget in. I was like, well, maybe we should just, do we minus it out from what we pay the commission? No, it makes more sense to,
So it's not a stupid question.
No, it's a good question.
Okay.
We scratched our heads on it as well. And,
Yeah. I'm thinking, didn't we already pay that when we took the money out of our account, put it in the Water Protection Commission account? All right.
And in the 24 pages of bills that are paid bills, Bruce, in here, there is a check that we've sent to them this month. Each month we send them a check, our portion of the.
Yeah, I saw that.
You saw that? Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what it is.
Yeah. Thank you.
Anybody else? Good. So, it looks like we can, public comments. And, no, Steve isn't here today.
Do we vote to approve the finance?
No.
I'll let Mike speak to
We
that.
don't typically do that.
Oh.
No, but I think we missed the vote on approving the minutes for
Correct.
January 21.
We're at discussion. Bob,
Pardon?
you call for a vote
Do I
on
have the right agenda here?
A vote on,
Yeah, you do.
approving the minutes.
okay.
You only approved the February.
That was
February 19th, I thought we already did that.
Are you sure?
You got to discussion,
You
and we were
sure?
talking about it.
Okay,
Oh,
I'm sorry. Okay, we'll jump back.
Right, Diane, we didn't vote on the minutes, right?
Yeah, it was January 21st. Is this the water minutes or the sewer minutes that didn't get voted on? It's on this agenda.
That's the water district agenda?
Oh, never mind, I'm looking at the sewer agenda,
Yeah,
never mind.
Yeah, the water just has
That's
the
me,
February
that's
meeting.
me,
And I
sorry.
think we did motion second and we did take a vote.
Yeah, I grabbed the wrong packet.
So we'll open and close the public comment, and so now we can move on. Item 4 with activity report with Matt, and project report with Matt, please.
All right, I'm not gonna read line by line on activity report. If there's anything that you want an explanation on through your reading of the packet, please let me know. I'll be happy to answer those best I can. But everything looks fairly normal. We did have 4 leaks over the month. We have been allocating a lot of time to our winter hydrant maintenance, as well as our private hydrant maintenance, and doing hydrant repairs. New services, we have a couple there. Everything looks consistent as far as services, and meters.
Can I ask one quick question?
Sure.
On private hydrant maintenance,
Yep,
is that something we charge for, or is that just?
yep,
It is, okay.
yeah.
Just so I can process it. Thanks.
No, absolutely. Yeah, so what we do is we enter into a contract with them. We go out there, do an initial inspection, provide them with a report. And then part of the contract is every 2 weeks we'll go check to make sure that they're not frozen or that any damage done to them.
Got it.
Yeah.
All right, thanks.
Everything else looks consistent for the time of year. Dig safes are still down, but I'm starting to notice that spring fever is coming. And notice that there was probably a dozen dig safe tickets submitted today, so construction season is coming. As far as any other questions for the activity report?
The only one I had, Matt, was on
Yeah.
hydrants. You had 441 hours of shoveling hydrants, that's 10 people, 40 hours?
So, let me just back up to that. I'm not sure if it just says shoveling, and that might be just the activity code that it's allotted to. Give me 1 second.
Check hydrants and shovel mark.
Yeah, that's part of it. So part of it's shoveling to make sure that they're accessible, making sure that they're marked so that they don't get hit by snow plowing, other activities. And also check the hydrants to make sure that they're not leaking and frozen, that they're still operable. That's part of a long-standing contract that we've had with the city.
So that's 10 people, 40 hours?
Yep.
Wow, in a month? That's a lot of time.
Every employee here participates in this task, and I'll tell you in February, we had like 5 different snowstorms. After every storm we go out, every department has a different route. They have about 100 hydrants each. They go around, they shovel, mark, check, and make sure they're accessible and pump dry.
Wow.
It keeps us busy in the winter. It's a tall task.
Yeah, it's big.
It is.
I never noticed it before.
Any questions for Matt?
All right, I'll just run down through the project update real quick. DOT, there are 3 DOT projects that have been awarded. Northeast is a contractor on those, already had a preliminary discussion. They will be starting out here on Minot Ave by Fairview, coming down to the rotary, around the Route 11 rotary, up to Union and down to Court. That'll be the first phase. Once they're done with that, they'll move up to Center Street from Turner up to Vets Bridge, and then from Vets Bridge just below Oak Hill where the separation of highway starts. Within those, we have a large amount of structures that need to be adjusted. We'll be getting out there mid-April to adjust those structures, lower those so they can begin their grinding, and then when they're ready, we'll be getting out there to raise those. Next week, though, we'll be doing preliminary inspections on those sections to make sure that we account for the condition and every asset that we have within the scope of that project. So when we come back, we make sure that no damage was done to those during the construction process. We have entered into contract, we are looking at entering a contract with Public Works to help facilitate this work. Typically, it's very manual intensive. In order to lower or raise one manhole, it typically takes about 3 staff members, and on average, you can get about 5 a day. Public Works has a piece of equipment that's attached to a skid steer that is called a Mr. Manhole. It's a big saw that fastens right to the manhole itself, cuts out the core, and then you can just lift it right out. Looking to improve our process as well as increase efficiency, as well as reduce some of the manual or labor-intensive tasks of that project, so we can move along to get back to some of our routine operations as well as these projects. We will be testing that next week to see if it's going to satisfy what the efficiencies we think we need to make sure that we can get through this volume of work. City of pavement projects, they were just, bids for several of them were awarded. We are going to be entering into contract with them to accept the bids of the raise and lower and other structures within the project limits of those. The final one here, Merrill Road. We did complete our test pits for the presumed conflicts with the reconstruction project. We were able to narrow down what started with 30-plus conflicts down to 2. So we're pretty happy with that result. And it looks like those 2 conflicts may be pushed off to the year 2026 because of the timing of changing the flow of the drainage with the EPA and installing that box culvert. They wouldn't be able to get it within that window. So it looks like that'll be done in 2026. So they'll be going from Minot Ave up to just about where the commercial side of Merrill Road begins. Any questions?
Very comprehensive. Thank you, Matt.
Well, hopefully I informed you a little bit.
Yeah. So, everyone good with Matt? Good, everyone's good with Matt. Let's move on to item 5, new business, election of officers.
All right, election of officers. Every March, per our charter, the district elects the position of trustee president, trustee treasurer, clerk, which is typically an Auburn Water Sewer District staff member, and superintendent. And we also select our auditor. Per the bylaws for the water district, this is done through ballots. So I have these ballots that I will pass around to everybody. They show who is the current officers of the district. Our current trustee president is Dennis Bergeron. Our current treasurer is Robert Kavanaugh. I am the superintendent. Eddie Williams is currently our clerk, and our auditor is R.H.R. Smith. Now I will say on a couple of these things, Dennis did say at the last meeting that if the board wants him to, he would continue to serve as president. Second, Eddie Williams, I appreciate his service as our clerk here. We had a lot of turnover last year. We had 4 different people in that role as clerk because we kept losing staff members. Typically, this is done by our finance director. So we've got Mike's name down at the bottom now that we've got him here and we're not letting him go. So we have that. Our current auditor is R.H.R. Smith. They're completing our audit right now for FY 2024. It's been a while since we've gone out to shop around for auditors, or at least kick the tires on our agreement with them. And I would like to do that this year. But I think just acknowledging them as our auditor as of right now is fine. So I did put next to everybody's name their terms, just so if anybody wants to consider that. But yeah, so there's a space here for trustee president. So if you circle the name that you would like to be trustee president, same with treasurer, and then you've got superintendent, clerk, and auditor with a space for write-ins if you want to change that up. But I can pass this around to trustees. I don't know if there's going to be any discussion before I pass these around, but I know in the past we didn't always follow the ballot. Sometimes it was just votes, but a couple of years ago, this is what we kind of migrated towards doing. Once you get them filled out, you can pass them back around to me. I'll tabulate them up and we'll make it happen. Anyone needs a pen or a pencil, let me know.
Somewhere mine got dropped. Oh, right there. Thank you.
Matt, I put you in for superintendent.
Don't do that. Mike, oh no,
No?
Mike's steering the ship.
Sir? Well, it's a unanimous for Dennis Bergeron to be trustee president. I have all in favor and one no vote for treasurer, so Bob, you will be treasurer again if you, and I've got, on all the other positions, they circled the options, which would be Mike Broadbent as superintendent, Mike Bailey as clerk, and R.H.R. Smith as auditor. So if the board wants to vote on those appointments, that would be Dennis Bergeron president, Bob as treasurer, and I guess I don't know, you've already voted by ballot, so I guess it's effective.
Yeah.
All right. And in per our bylaws, in the absence of the president, the treasurer presides over the meetings, so you may continue.
So we don't need to do any official vote?
No, you
It's
voted
all
by
in
ballot.
paper. We
Yep.
don't need to do anything verbally.
Correct?
Thank you. Good, that was what I figured. So now we have the second part of new business, district goals of 2025. That's going to be Mike, right?
Yes, so district goals. Now, one thing, so for everybody's background on this, we've had a lot going on the last couple of years, a lot of things the trustees have been working towards, and we had some things that were kind of some unfinished business at the time when we had to set our budget. You've all heard me talking about water meters. We do have some money in our budget this year for water meters. We're going to talk about that a little bit further in the packets. But a bigger picture is replacement of all the district's meters. So that's something. There's a few goals there that I'd like to try to determine, and we don't have to decide on any of these things tonight. One thing I really want to gather from the boards is particularly, so we have a water district and we have a sewer district, two separate entities under one roof. Right now, the sewer district pays the water district $50,000 per year for usage of the meters and the readings, because they get their revenue from the same place we do, from our water meters and our readings. The question that I have is, if the water district is going to take on a large capital project such as replacing all of the meters, is the $50,000 a year a fair amount for the sewer district to continue to contribute? Should the sewer district basically just fund half of the cost for water meters? I mean, these are the questions that I'd like to ask the boards. I don't know what the discussions were like in the past. Obviously, they discussed something, and the sewer district's paying the water district $50,000. It's been like that since I've been assistant superintendent and here now. It's never been adjusted since I've been here. So I guess that is something I really wanted to ask the sewer board this last night, but we did not have a quorum. We did not have a sewer trustee meeting last night. So I didn't get to discuss that, but I would really like that discussed amongst the boards and get that determined, so it's out of so I can just move forward and figure that, if it's going to be $4 million to replace meters, I know it's just going to be the water district getting the funding and paying for that. Or if it's decided to be split, we'll have our marching orders. We'll know where to go. So that's one thing. Another thing that we've talked about is the district does not have an asset management plan. We don't have asset management staff. We do not have very good long-range capital plans. It's not something that we've ever done. We do have a capital improvement plan for our water distribution system, which basically looks at all of our pipes and recommends which one should be replaced when and prioritizes them. But we don't have anything like, for say, this facility. We don't have anything for our water storage tanks, our booster stations, our PRV valves, all of our facilities out there. It's always been kind of a, if it starts to fail, you budget and you fix it. I would really like to bring some planning to the district to get this stuff built out so that we know in year 2030 we got to replace Goff Hill Reservoir. That's going to be a sizable project. We need to plan for that. This facility is another key thing. So that takes work. It takes software to track these things. We're looking at adding a position here that would do asset management, that would also help out with the IT support. That's something else we're going to talk about further in the meeting. I anticipate these costs to be about $150,000 a year. That's for a full-time employee and for the software to manage these types of programs. That's not currently in our budgets, neither water or sewer. It's something that we had talked about in December, potentially revising our FY 2025 budgets to include this at some point in the year. But at that time in December, I did not have these figures. So that's something else. I know I jumped around here a little bit. I went to meters first, asset management, water quality strategic plan. Now, we did budget $30,000 this year for a water quality study. We also can qualify for a capacity development grant through the Maine Drinking Water Program to bump us up to potentially $60,000. I have been talking with the city of Lewiston to see if they will partner on us with this water quality study. What I'd like to study is, where are we headed with our water treatment? There's the global warming, the historical trends. The lake is degrading, and it's not anything that we can do if we had unlimited funds and we had unlimited staffing and we did as much as we could to do remediation in the lake. I don't think you're going to slow this curve. It's just the lake is warming. We have less ice on. Every year it's always like fingers crossed we don't have an issue. We've had to treat for algae blooms. We've had to treat for phosphorus in the lake. At some point we're going to get to a point where we can't treat in the lake, and what are we going to do? I was actually hired on in the district back in 2012. I was hired as a treatment manager. When I was hired, I was told that within 5 years, I'm going to oversee the construction and the management of a filtration facility.
You didn't get it done?
I didn't get that done, but I think it's to the benefit of the two communities that we didn't have to do that, and it's to our benefit that we don't have to do that right now. But all I want to do, I want to plan. When I don't want the drinking water program to come down here tomorrow and say, you must build a filtration plant in 48 months or something like that. We're going to have to build it on their terms. We won't be prepared. We won't have a plan. We won't have a preliminary design. We wouldn't have figured out a hierarchy of how to run the thing. I want to look at water quality trending and try to predict, okay, is it 5 years from now? Is it 10 years from now? Is it 2 years from now? How do we start? I mean, we're talking about $50, $60+ million. How do we start getting the ball rolling on funding for preliminary design, studying, piloting, siting, construction? It's a process. So I'd like to do a study to help us kind of pull that stuff together. We're currently working on a scope. As I said, we're currently funded for this in the budget. Until we distribute an RFQ and get proposals back, the money that we have budgeted, is that enough? I don't know the answer to that yet. I'm hopeful it is, but that's just something else that I'd like us to keep our attention on. I do meet with Phil Kroll at the city once a month, and again, that's something that he's looking at. When you start looking at lobbying for large amounts of funding assistance, you have to start the planning early. You can't just go to them and say, hey, we got to build this plant next year, we need the money next year. No. You got to start hey, 5 years from now, Auburn and Lewiston need support. and you gotta start that now. So that's a big one.
Mike, so before we jump on to another one, so talking about the water quality assessment strategic plan, is there something that you would like from us today to start dealing with this?
Not on that. I think we're funded right now. I think I was told we'll have the scope in next week. I'm gonna get a draft of the scope together. That's something I've been working on. We've met with a consultant that's done similar studies for us in the past. So I should have a scope by your next meeting in April.
Okay, good, so you're okay with us, so that you're just moving in ahead, you don't need anything from us, good,
Yeah.
thank you.
So the last one is facilities. Again, this building's 52 years old. We have needs. We don't have enough space. We got about a half dozen vehicles that sit outside every night, that sit outside in the weather. Our HVAC system here struggles at times. The systems are old. The doors, the windows, they're all. It's time. We actually budgeted in 2022 to do a design of a storage garage that we were actually going to build just across from the little side street over here. We had bought in a couple of houses, had those demolished, we were going to put a garage there. At that time, you know, the city is working on long-range plans in this area, and it doesn't include the water and sewer district being here. And it kind of makes sense. This is valuable real estate. You know, commercial properties would be well suited here. It's very difficult for us to, as you can imagine, pulling a dump truck, an excavator, and a trailer out of here. We can really only turn right, and then you're out into traffic here, and you're wind up looping around in town. It's not an easy site. Up at our reservoir site is where we store a lot of our materials, our gravel stockpiles, our sand. We do some decanting up there. We keep pipe and other stuff up there. So for us to go up there and get parts and pieces, we got to loop the block. We're also surrounded by residential neighborhoods. I think someone could attest to that. You know, at some point somebody's going to start complaining about us banging tailgates in the middle of the night surrounded by residential homes. I think we've been lucky so far. We're pretty good, but we've got a bunch of new apartments that are right up against our yard, and where we make a lot of noise, a lot of dust, and you know, I don't know if that's the best place for us to be doing that, but right now I don't have another place. We're looking at working with a firm to do a facility, basically a needs study with us. You know, okay, we got 27 employees, we got this equipment, we do this type of work. What do we need for space? What do we need for a building? Right now we are not currently budgeted for that, but I am getting proposals on doing that needs study for us. But it is something the district should start thinking about. You know, if you know, do we want to stay here? You know, if we do, I need to start working this year on getting proposals on roof, HVAC, windows, doors, because this building is showing its age a little bit. So yeah, I know that's a lot of wind there, but.
Yeah. So let me jump in here. Dennis isn't here, obviously. He and I had a bunch of conversation about this. I appreciate Mike putting this initial list together. I think the board ought to think about this in a bit of a different way. There's a lot of operational detail in here. From a board perspective, I don't think we need that detail in the goals. I think what the board should be doing is saying, hey, these are major issues. This is what we want accomplished over whatever period of time. You know, we're mid-year here, but typically you would say over the year, what do we want? What are our expectations about what's going to be accomplished during this time frame? And some of these things might span multiple years, right? And it's good to give that guidance to the superintendent. We just went through this exercise, I guess it was about a year ago now in the city, right? The city manager basically had goals from the city council that were literally like, hey, do a good job. And that was about the extent of what the goals were. So we've changed that whole process, and we have identifiable goals. And the way that works is for major policy initiatives or major projects or whatever, we have, the city council sets out for the city manager and says, hey, we have this item and this is what we want done this year, he actually comes back to us in executive session. We now have reporting on a quarterly basis. We go over this list. He says, here's where we are, you know, this one's not starting until the fourth quarter, I finished this, whatever. That all rolls into his annual evaluation. So I think these things on here are fine. I think there's some other things we might want to consider putting on here. Rates is one of them. Staffing is another. And operations at the treatment plant is another one, right? Things that we've had conversations about, and we can work into this, right? You know, by the time we get this figured out, we're gonna be in the last half of this year. But I think for next year, when we start our fiscal year, we should have a list that the trustees have worked through that said, hey, Mike, these are the things that we see are high priority items. We want to have this part done, you know, in this year. Like, pick one of these, like the this water quality assessment report strategic plan. It might be, last year we might have said, hey, Mike, in the first half of the year, we want you to develop a scope of work and engage the contractor to provide us with a report that says this, and by the end of the year, we want you to provide us a report. So I think there's some work for us to do on this, but this is the idea. I think it will help guide the trustees as we go through the year, and it'll certainly be helpful to Mike, you know, because when he comes back and says, hey, I'm working on X, Y, Z, and we're all looking down at the end of the table, he goes, and remember at the beginning of the year when you told me this was a high priority thing and I was to get these things done in this time frame. So anyways, that sort of, I think, encapsulates the discussion Dennis and I had about this before he headed out on vacation.
So let me ask you just one question. If you were to have the luxury of relocating, which I get that, does it make any difference where you are geographically in the city?
I mean, it's nice being in the center of the city, you know?
That's nice.
We have a problem north, we're halfway there. South, same thing.
But we also have limited opportunities to
Right.
move you to the center of the city.
And the activity that you do may be disruptive to those around you, depending on where you are, as in case with Goff Hill. You know, talking with the city manager and other city staff, you know, it would appear that they would like us out by the airport and in that more commercial zone, a little bit more, you know, friendly to what we do. And I can understand that. You know, we wouldn't be able to respond to something on Center Street as fast or up around the lake, but we'd get there, you know. So yeah, I mean, it's...
Center of the city is better, but geographically, what I'm hearing is you could probably make anything work.
I think we could, yeah.
Okay. So I do agree, you're aging out on this probably.
Yeah, it's getting there.
Yeah.
You know, we're either just gonna have to start investing money into it, and then the question is, do you invest $1 million into this building if 5 years from now, you're
gonna want it
You're gonna want it anyways?
It still doesn't suit your needs.
You know, one thing I really don't want to do is I don't want to divide our organization. I don't want to have like the office here and send the operations out somewhere else. I would advocate pretty hard to keep us all together. Just harder to manage if you're separated out everywhere. But I think going through an analysis with a consultant will help define that. Matt and I did go on a tour up at the Kennebec Water District before the end of last year. They built a whole new operations facility, and you know, they do everything at one site, from their stockpiling their gravel to dewatering their Vector trucks to all their office staff, their trustee rooms. Everything is right there, and it's nice.
They have elbow room.
You know, it's you know, that's what we need.
Yeah.
But I know it comes at a cost, and it takes planning. So that's why we're trying to. I'm not saying we got to do this in 2025, but I feel like we need to you know, make it a goal to maybe start the planning process. We have to start buying property, you know, maybe in 2026 to start planning to construct this thing in 2 to 3 years. You know, property doesn't show up available all the time, you know.
Yeah, a big thing too, Tim, is, you know, the distribution collection system's been growing at a pretty rapid rate. There's already plans potentially of expanding out even further to include, 5 or 6 more pump stations just on the sewer side alone. And to have the staffing and the equipment and to be able to properly maintain and store that equipment. We're not there, we're beyond that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And last question, if you were to move forward with the water meter replacement, is that a 2 or 3 or 4 year project? Or, to do the citywide, how long? Just a,
Well, I think
pull the number out of the
we
sky.
we could do it all in 1 year.
Oh, okay.
I've got some preliminary numbers that I'm gonna show you tonight further on in the agenda that I've pulled some rough numbers together as far as the metering goes, and the costs of that. The last time the district did it, they phased it over 4 years. To split it, they did a couple of different bonds and they did it over 4 years. It's something to think about, 20 years from now, if we do it all in 1 year now, 20 years from now, somebody's gonna be coming to this board saying, these meters are 20 years old, we need to do this.
The other
You know?
piece of this is the lost revenue, right? Because it's likely all this isn't a leak someplace going into the ground.
No.
And so,
Yeah.
the
The water and the sewer.
water, right,
Right.
water and the sewer is,
Yeah.
it's a pretty sizable amount of money. So I think that's a factor in trying to determine how fast we want to do it.
And also, we'd need to be looking probably at a rate increase if we're gonna spend that kind of money, would we not?
Yes.
Or how soon should we be
well, I mean,
looking at? I think we should be thinking about that now.
Well, all of those things said yes. Right now, the water district's in pretty good financial shape. We've got $4.1 million cash on hand. We could do quite a bit of work with that, but to do all of these things, yeah, there's gonna be rate increases.
That's what I'm getting at.
And there, facilities, meters, depending on what happens with the water quality strategic plan, there's gonna be rate increases.
Right.
Well, and staffing.
Staffing, asset management, yeah.
You're on the extreme low end at
Yes.
this point.
Yep.
And for that new position, the $140,000, $150,000 position, would that position also lessen our dependence on the computer store for all that they're doing for us?
It would
The thousands of dollars we're spending to them?
It certainly would, and it would also help us manage that, because right now, we don't have anybody that does IT here, so every time we need something, we have to call them. Whereas if we had, the policies or practices in hand, we'd be able to manage a lot of that in-house. So, yeah. So, yeah, I don't know if there's anything actionable here right now. I would like to propose that the asset management, that we have money available, we could fund this, say September or October of this fall, get somebody on board, just have this part of our operation for 2026. The meters, we're gonna continue to work on this. I would like to figure out how to navigate this. Should the sewer district
So,
jump in here?
question on that one, Mike. So you say they pay us $50,000 a year.
Yep.
Is that for the billing part of it, or is that for the?
It's not really defined. I think what's it coded? It just says meters.
Right. So we send out a bill every quarter, who, is that split? Is that part of
It's
the
2 separate
50,000?
bills every quarter. Are you saying, who are you saying we bill?
No, I'm saying who pays for the billing?
For us to send the bills out.
Oh, the water district pays the NDS bill, which is the billing software.
The water district pays it, the sewer district doesn't pay it?
That's correct.
Well,
So
they
the
pay
50 so the
$50,000.
So the $50,000, that's also part of.
I'm
the billing.
assuming the water district uses that to fund NDS and the programs and the meters and
So it really doesn't pay for the meters, it pays more for,
software and, the operation of the utility billing software.
so it doesn't pay for the meters.
No, not really,
Basically,
no.
Well, right,
So
so,
not a lot of money left there for the meters, so.
No, it doesn't cover half the meter. We have a meter foreman, we have a meter reading truck, we have, he spends 40 hours a week working on meters. It doesn't cover half of that.
Right, so they're not paying their fair share of the costs.
right, so we should figure out what the cost of the billing is.
Right.
From the the personnel cost and the software cost, and whatever that is, because I don't know, NDS is either a subscription service or you're paying the annual maintenance
Annual
for the
maintenance,
software.
yeah.
So they should be paying half of that and half of the staff time, whatever that is. And then the meters, there's a couple ways to look at it, right? One way is they're buying the data. And the other way, because we don't have any operational need for the meters, right? We have the meters so we know how much to bill people.
Correct.
So it should seem like they ought to be paying 50% of that because we have no more reliance on that data than they do. We both need it equally for the same purpose.
That's the way I see it.
Correct.
And,
Do you agree?
you know, I could certainly, we can pull that exercise and, you know, we can bring that back. And, I mean, this is part of the conversation I wanted to have with the sewer board. And, you know, a lot of you are on hold. So, we can certainly bring that for next month's meetings.
And by doing that, it really doesn't impact the rates whatsoever. It's just shifting responsibility.
Now, the sewer district will have to allocate more funds for that.
Well, they're
so
allocating more funds, but we're allocating less funds.
on the water side, yeah.
Yeah, so it's just shifting some responsibility.
Yep,
Well, right.
So
But
it
it's
looked at
two
as two
different
different
rate
businesses.
bases.
totally
Right, no, I
separate
understand.
budgets.
Yeah.
So I totally understand, but as a consumer, I receive one bill.
Yeah,
Now,
you're,
that one
you're,
bill is broken out, but
Right.
I'm paying whatever it is, $100 and
Right.
some odd dollars.
Right.
It doesn't make any
Yeah,
difference.
so
to
your
me.
point is your water bill goes down, your sewer bill goes up, everything else.
It's just shifting assets,
Yeah.
shifting responsibility.
yeah,
So, yeah, to your point, I think it should be an equally split. And then that kind of paves the road to when the meter replacement does happen, the responsibilities of each department.
Yeah, because there's a couple ways to do it. They could pay half the project cost, or the water district could do all the meters, and then they could just depreciate that over some period of time, like say 10 years,
Mhm.
and send a bill to the sewer district every year for 10 years if they don't want to do it up front on a project. There's a bunch of financial ways. Mike
Yeah.
could figure out how to do it,
Yeah,
but
that-
the first hurdle is to have them agree to the principle that 50% of this expense is their responsibility.
But no matter how we do it, it just gets us closer to doing it.
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's-
We'll run the financial exercise, we'll bring that back next month. All right, I guess that's what I had on goals. We can continue to refine these. Again, I wasn't looking for any decision tonight on any of this per se.
So for next month, I think the trustees should look at this list. I don't think we need the detail, but
Yeah,
for next month, at least think about, other than what's on here, and then I mentioned rate staffing
Yep.
and the treatment operations issue, if there's other things that people think would be goals that the trustees should have, then we can start working on the, you know, what the deliverables are and on what time frame.
like it.
So, are we good with this now?
Yeah.
We're good? Everybody good with this? Everybody? Okay, looks good. So, let's move on to item 6, old business, the water meter request for qualifications.
Yeah, so we talked about this last month. The district did send out an RFQ for meters. We did have some preliminary numbers I could share with you. If you want to grab one of these and pass it around. So the district budgeted $75,000 this year to purchase a certain amount of meters and equipment to get started. Some big changes have happened. Our vendor that we had used for a long time, EJ Prescott, the meters that they supply, they changed meters. So it really caused us to take a pause, and we wanted to look at all vendors, all meters, knowing that we have this impending change coming. So we submitted an RFQ. We got pricing for meters, meter reading software. There's a lot of technology with meters. They do leak detection, they do pressure sensing, they do temperature sensing, they do a number of things now. A lot of that has annual costs, as you can see, for those different services. Now you don't have to utilize all of them. So based on the prices that we got, we projected that out based off from our 6,500 meters in our system. So you'll see the different vendors, Core and Main, EJP Styles Company tie sales. This is what it would cost if we went through their meter supplier and changed out all of our water meters. I factored in what the annual costs were for each entity. Some of them vary based off, some of them are radio technology, some of them are cellular based. Some of them we would need 4 to 5 collector points in the system, some we would only need 2. And then I ran that out over 20 years. Now again, this is just the fixed cost for meters, the software itself. You know, so 20 years is about 3.1 million for the low bidder. And to be honest, so far it's been the leader of the technology that we've seen and the way staff is trending to prefer. So in the EJP bid. So yeah, I just wanted to show you this. This is what we're working on. Once we select the platform and start making the change internally on meters, if we go that route, we'll be able to better project these costs for the boards. We're also going to look at metering for a service. So once we select the platform, there are other offerings out there, so where potentially we may not own the meters. You could pay a monthly fee basically based off the number of meters that you have. So every year, rather than funding, you know, 3.1 million, you would pay a flat fee of say $200,000 a year. But they own the meters, they install them, they maintain them. It's an interesting consideration that we'd like to run the numbers on. Obviously, when you pay for a service, you're paying for a service. It's gonna cost you more. But there's some interesting things to consider. You'd be tied for 20 years. So, but if you pay and replace all your meters that are guaranteed for 20 years, you're kind of tied for 20 years anyways. But you're a little bit more flexible. If something happened 10 years from now, you could change.
So these things are warranted for 20 years, but they're not willing to sign a 20-year contract, right?
As far as metering for service?
Well, I think you need to align them, right, to get the price. So if I just look on this now, what we've done is just take this first one. This is what they would charge us for the meters. That's their first year annual cost, and you just multiplied that annual cost out for 20 years.
Yes.
Okay. So my question is, I'm assuming none of these vendors are willing to have a 20-year contract.
To fix the price of the meters? Or and the annual fees? Yeah, you're probably
whatever
right.
the annual fee is.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, probably not.
So, if I was doing this analysis, I would not go out that far,
Right.
right? I would, because a meter as a service person, I'd align it with what they're gonna do. They're not gonna give you a 20-year contract either. Maybe they'll give you a 5-year or
5-year sweetheart deal.
Right, a 5 or 6 year
Yeah.
contract.
Well, they do want to give 20-year contracts, and it does escalate after 5 years.
For the
10 years.
Oh, I
meter as
see,
a
yeah.
service.
Meter of a service
Okay,
would be a
so
20-year
if that's,
contract.
if you're doing that, that's fine. And then this annual cost, you need to build in an inflation escalator in there.
Oh, absolutely,
Like 3% a year or
Yeah.
something, so you can get numbers to compare.
Yep. Again, this was just a preliminary thing.
Yeah,
I just wanted to show you where we're at with this. But it's definitely very intriguing, and we're excited by what we've seen.
And your annual cost includes all of these various sensor services.
Yep, this was going for the Cadillac.
Well, yeah,
and for
because
leak
if you're
detection
not,
and-
the question, I think, is if you say, okay, well, we're gonna save some money and we're not gonna use some of those, well, what's the trade-off? What are you losing, and what's staff gonna have to do if you don't have these sensors?
Right. Well, we don't have them now, and we went, Matt and I and some of our other staff went down to Medford, Mass back in December.
Yeah.
And they had just gone with the same meter platform that we're kind of indicating we'd like to go with here. They just changed out like 13,000 meters last year, and since they put these in and got these leak sensors, they found 19 leaks. They found and repaired 19 leaks. They had no idea that they had. So when you say we're losing 220 million gallons a year, I'd be willing to bet 10 to 12% of that is meter efficiency. The other 10 to 12 is all these little wispy service leaks that we have no idea that are out there. And the water's just kind of getting away in the drainage and places. We just don't know what's there. It's not causing problems. It's not coming to the surface. Nobody knows what's going on. So it's intriguing to see what we could find and potentially save on not pumping that extra water, so,
So when you say leaks before the meter,
yep.
how the heck does a meter?
So they have acoustic sensors in the meter that basically sense vibration. So they can feel it and hear it. You know, water escaping from a pipe under pressure makes noise. You know, kind of makes like a tearing or a ripping noise. It's constant. So the meters, it's a network system. You'll set off an alarm and it'll tell you these 7 meters on Shirley Avenue are all, and the intensity is higher by Jeff's house. And we can go out there and do some investigation and, oh, let's shut this line. Oh, it stopped. Well, you know it's on that line.
So you're not identifying it per house, it's just,
Right. Yeah, and I should say, you know, I forget the percentage, but some of them were main leaks, some of them were service leaks. But yeah, it was all before the meter. Yeah, but some interesting stuff.
They do have capability if there's an internal leak to send out an alarm.
Yes.
Because they'll do your daily usage.
Yeah.
And then if you detour from that and it goes really high, it'll send an alert through their software that
Got it.
there could be.
Or if the meter's
But that would
always
be-
spinning.
Well, that's it. No, it picks that up.
So like the blowout at the panel
Pioneer,
plant,
yeah.
they had a 10-inch water main. They're only open Monday through Friday. They run 3 shifts, but broke on the weekend.
This would instantly alert, we would get an email come into our service department and, hey, you got something going on over
Oh
there.
yeah, it filled up the room and eventually the pressure got enough, it blew the wall out and the water all went out the plant.
I always, I feel horrible for them experiencing that, but the ones I really feel bad for, and these happen on a regular basis, you know, somebody went away and
Oh,
the
yeah,
toilet
yeah.
started leaking.
Yeah.
They have been $2,000 and $3,000 water and sewer bills because people's water ran through their meter, and if it goes through your meter and goes into the sewer,
For it.
you gotta pay for it. And we don't have any technology right now to prevent that, to catch it, or to stop it. You know, any of these platforms that we go to, they all do that now. This would be just something built in that, you know, we'll be able to prevent in the future, but it happens all the time here.
Yeah, in a running toilet, you'd be shocked at how much water would be drawn, and people don't even notice that it's happening.
So yeah, no decisions needed here. We did budget for this. We are gonna be moving forward in the next month with purchasing and selecting a new meter technology. So nothing else there.
Interesting to see you talked about a little bit of how they communicate, how robust that system is. I'm sure you guys looking at it, it's interesting, that's all.
Yes.
You know, is whether it's cell tower, which sounds problematic, you know.
There's only one that's cellular, and I'll be honest, it makes me very nervous,
Yeah,
cellular.
yeah.
I mean, I know just driving around town with my own, there's spots in town
Right.
my cell phone doesn't come in.
Right.
So it just seems.
Right, and a meter underground,
Right.
you know. But,
boss, my cell phone doesn't come in.
Yeah.
cell service here.
Yeah. So yeah, no, it's definitely something we're taking into consideration.
Okay, yeah.
So that's what I had on meters, Bob.
Skate agreements?
All right, skate agreements, we talked about this the last couple of months. You know, I don't really have a lot to report as far as a change at this time. I have been, you know, Mr. Harmon has been reaching out to Carl Shalene, the Lewiston mayor, to try to set up a meeting where we can talk with them and their administrator and their water and sewer superintendents. We have not been able to secure a meeting. I have not been able to, the Lewiston Skate Tech is still not on call for UV operations. He is starting to cross-train, they are working together on a weekly basis, but, you know, essentially we signed this interlocal agreement in the First Amendment, and we're in default of these agreements, and we failed to execute new agreements that either amend these or replace them. So I'll let you.
Yeah, so I'll add a bit to this. So everybody will remember this wasn't going well, so I went over and saw the mayor in Lewiston, same reported before. I went and saw him, talked about this. He met with their city administrator, and we did get a bit of traction. So the guy's shown up, he's been doing some training, that's all very positive. The problem is, it's the same list of things before, right? It's gotta be an electrician, gotta be able to do the programming, gotta be familiarized with the plant, gotta have a level 4 water operator certificate. The last two aren't there. And we need certainty of services, right? They need to be on call, they need to be on call and be able to do the job. And even during business hours, they need to be able to make it a priority, right? The problem we have now is you call them, they tell you I'm changing a street light or I'm putting in a new outlet over at the fire station, I'll be there tomorrow. But we're making water all the time.
So he checks a few of the boxes, but.
Yeah, so they have moved along, but we've seen this before, right? You guys have been
Yeah.
here, they've seen this before over the last 5 years, and we'll get a bit of activity and then they'll be off doing some other electrical job. So I've been very clear with both the mayor, the council president, and the city manager, heads of the city administrator, what was gonna happen, right? This will be no surprise to them whatsoever. As late as last Friday, I talked to the mayor again and said, hey, you guys have told me, I've talked to the mayor at least a half a dozen times over the last couple months about this, that we looked at it last month, we were gonna have this meeting today, and you guys said you would do this stuff. We were supposed to have a meeting with the two mayors, with the superintendent, with the public works director and the city administrator in Lewiston, to hammer out how we're going to get to the end of this. Because this stuff they're doing is great, but they're not fulfilling the responsibility. And I've told them repeatedly that if we didn't get any movement on this, that it was very likely that the Board of Trustees would move forward with a notice of breach with a cure period. Now, look, none of us wants to get into a situation where the alarms are at the UV plant on the Lewiston side and we go, oh, okay, the hell with it. Maybe they'll show up and fix it and maybe they won't. But, so the idea here isn't just to sever this, it's to get them to the table so we can hammer this out to know exactly how we're going to get to where we need to get. So that's my view of this. I'm prepared to make a motion that the Board of Directors, the Board of Trustees direct the superintendent to work with legal to draft a notice of breach with a 90-day cure period and transmit that to the city of Lewiston. And if we have a second, we can have more discussion about that.
I'll second.
Right, and again,
Moved and seconded.
yeah, so my point again is, Mike has given them two very clear paths on how to resolve this, right? One, here's the things you need to do if your guy's gonna do this, and if they do it, we'd all be happy.
Right. Is
Right.
90 days a good time? I
Well, it's
don't
in the
know.
contract.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
in the agreement.
Okay.
And it's in a local agreement 4 as amended, I guess,
Okay.
Diane. We should say that to give them a notice of breach of,
Interlocal agreement 4 in the first
in the
amendment
first amendment.
of interlocal
Yeah.
agreement number 4.
So, so Mike's told them, look, these are the things you need to do. If you do it, great, we'd all be happy. He's also said, if you can't make this happen and you don't want to make this happen, we'll do it. We have the capability, we've been doing it for 5 years. We have the capability to do it. You know, you guys can do your network, we'll do our network, but we'll do the whole UV plant and we'll send you a bill. And I think you quoted them for the first year,
It's around that.
$24,000. If you can't make this happen, we'll take care of it, you just pay your share. So it's not like there aren't alternatives, and it's not like they've had 2 months to get to the table and that hasn't happened.
Any more discussion? So we have a motion and a second.
Well, Bruce is,
Well, I'm kind of living in wrong.
He's stewing.
You know, I guess my feeling is, but if we have an agreement, maybe this would be
This is the first step, isn't it? More or less.
well, my thought would be, you know, let's just do it and send them an exorbitant bill.
do what?
An exorbitant bill. In other words, make it so, you know, we have covered all of our expenses for covering their ass. You know, our employee vacations and insurances and all the, you know, I don't know if $24,000 covers all of the expenses of having our staff do this.
Sure does sound low, doesn't it, Bruce?
It's, you know, $2,000 a month. Is that all?
It's basically,
Does this SCADA cost us $48,000 a year?
No, but we use SCADA everywhere, not just, this is just at the two shared water facilities, the UV plant and the chloramines.
Right.
I basically see this as 10% of our SCADA costs for the district. 10% of that.
They do their own distribution network, and we do
Right.
our own distribution network, so this is just at the plant.
Just the third part.
These agreements pertain to
But we-
everything.
But we have to hire a separate person to cover, because right now, our guy's working overtime to try and do.
We have two. We
Our-
hired a new guy.
We hired a second one this year. Our guy has been covering for 5 years, up until December alone. He's been covering all the on-call for 5 years at the UV plant and chloramines. Every alarm, they paid us 50% of a SCADA guy, but we're also paying for 50% of their guy who's not working out there. The problem is we've been overburdened. You know, we've been strung along that, oh yeah, we're gonna get him trained and we'll get him up there. We'll get, oh, it's you, well, he left, we got another guy,
But
we'll get
have
him
we been
trained.
financially impacted by it, is my question.
Well, yes, but we don't have, we can check with legal, but I don't think we have any means to back charge them, because we're operating under this agreement. And so the agreement requires us, if we think they breached it, before we can do anything, we've got to give them a notice of breach and give them a cure period. And, you know, the other thing I would say about this is, you know, for Bruce and Tim, we've had a lot of discussion over the last, preceding me, but I know Eric and Bob have been involved in a lot of discussion, even prior to that, obviously, about the operation at the UV plant and how this works. And so there's been a number of attempts to start a discussion about that, around how it operates and the funding. Mike will remember the number. It's 170,000, something like that. That's imbalance, meaning things we're doing that Lewiston should be paying for. So what's happened is all the parties involved agreed to wait until the new city administrator was on board in Lewiston to restart this discussion. I've been very clear with the folks in Lewiston from a political standpoint, not meaning partisan, you know, but just inner-city political, intergovernmental relations. Having to do this is not setting that thing up for success, right? You know, the new city administrator is gonna come in, we're still gonna have those discussions, it's on a list that Auburn has, the city manager has already met a couple times with the new city administrator, they know each other anyway, and said, hey, here's a bunch of things Auburn's gonna wanna talk about, and by the way, the water district's got issues as well. So, for something this minor in the scheme of things, to have to go to this step to get them to the table, doesn't bode real well for the forthcoming discussions we're gonna have when the city administrator that comes in, but maybe it'll wake them up. I mean,
So if they don't react, if they don't respond, then what?
well, if they don't respond to this and do anything in the 90 days to cure this,
Legal?
well, then we'll just, what I told them is, my understanding is, if we don't get this fixed, we'll take care of our stuff at the UV plant, and if your alarms goes off, knock yourself out, but we're not fixing them. The last time I went over to talk to the mayor in person, every time I go, I talk to Mike first to get an update. We had, what was it, 2 or 3 calls over the past couple weeks in the middle of the night when our SCADA guy went out to fix this, but they were on the Lewiston's part, you know, some of the plans for everybody, and part of it's running stuff. And my point to them was, if that stuff happens in the future, I don't know what you're doing for water, but we're not coming to fix it. So,
Is that a problem for us?
It could get to that. I mean, as Jeff was saying, you know, the treatment plant's complex in that some assets there are shared, like the raw water pumps pump the water for both Lewiston and Auburn. Some of the final treatment stuff, like the analyzers and the chemical feed pumps, are specific to the individual cities. So their chemical feed pump or analyzer could go down, and if that's not communicating with the control systems, then they're not making water. You know, it becomes a, you know, SCADA is not one of these things, like, it's not pounding widgets at a factory. It's when this stops communicating and this stops working, you need to be there right now and get this fixed, because you're not making water. So it's different type of work. It's not like somebody has to go up there every day and do a little SCADA work. It's when it comes about. I think I did the exercise back in January, is what you're referring to. There was like 33 hours our SCADA tech spent at the lake. There was 6 after-hour call-ins, including like 20 hours of overtime, and half of it was for Lewiston alarms. You know, and you know, we did that. They're not paying us for half of our technician anymore. We're not paying them for half of theirs, but they're also not serving on call. They're also not helping with the SCADA work. So, you know, you talked about back billing them. I feel completely comfortable sending them a bill from January 1 till now, because they haven't been paying us.
well,
You know, but that, we could just, you know, wait on that one, but
right.
it's not what I'm looking to do. I just want to get them to the table to talk about agreements. Well, what are we going to do? You know, and
This agreement, interlocal agreement 4 as amended, is quite broad, doesn't have a lot of specificity in it, but it was written at a time when this was all going great, everybody was doing their thing. Now that's not the case, and repeatedly they failed to hold up their end of the bargain. So everyone's quite skeptical about this, and I think that we need to get to the table and come to a better understanding with more detail in it about exactly who's doing what and under what conditions, so that this is clear. And like I said before, if they do their part, okay, we'd be happy. If they don't want to do their part, we'll send them a bill. We'd be happy. But we're not happy with what's going on right now.
So if we get to the point where we're sending a bill, then are we gonna look after their stuff on their, their half?
That's what we'd be billing them for.
Right, billing them for that, yeah.
Basically, what we'd be saying is, we're gonna do what we've been doing for 5 years. Our people
Right.
take care of the plants, and we're just gonna send you a bill for
Yeah.
having to do that.
Yeah.
Which seems like an easy way out for them.
Yes.
But,
I think with them though, it's a control, also a control issue. They want to have control out there. That would take some of their control away. I think that's part of the issue, but I think that's
I don't know.
they're beyond that now.
They've had 5 years, I mean.
Yeah, because they're not trying to do their part of the control.
Right, yeah.
We're doing it. So are we good with that? And so we probably should have Mike read.
You've had a motion and a second,
Yeah.
and you're in discussion, so we got to call for a vote.
All in favor of the motion? Unanimous? All in favor? You good, Diane, and all that? Super. So, Mike, the water quality study?
Water quality study, I updated you during the goals discussion, but yeah, we did meet with CDM Smith. They did the last water quality master plan of the lake back in 2012. We're working with them on a scope. So I hope to have that by the time of the next trustee meeting. So I'll be able to run that by you all then. The good news is Lewiston is on board with this effort. They do have funding available, so we're working towards this. So I will be applying for a grant through the drinking water program. I hope to get that secured by the next month as well.
Great.
In the notes, Mike, it said Lewiston is looking to extend the pipe. So are they on board for the whole study or just extending the pipe?
So they are funded right now for a water quality study to determine if it's a good idea to extend the intake pipe.
Right.
And what I'm trying to explain to them to do is, well, why would we extend the intake pipe if 2 years down the road we're gonna build a filtration plant? They agree with this. And they agree that, bottom line, we gotta look at the water quality, look at the last 25 years worth of trends, predict out where we're going. If a recommendation is to, yeah, proceed with extending the intake, well then we'll factor that into our plans. If it's, forget the intake pipe, you need to address filtration. So we're all in agreement there, we're just trying to wrap through the scope.
And it's not just filtration, right? It's filtration, but it's also some of these other issues. It could be alum dosing station,
It could be.
dredging the basin. The big concern, I think, that the trustees have had is that everybody recognizes at some point you're gonna have to have some or all of these along the way, advanced treatment applied. You can't build this stuff overnight. It takes years, right? So the question is, like Mike's saying, based on all the analysis, the trend of the data, at some point you get to you extend out this trend line, you get to a point that says, here we have to have whatever this is, filtration, alum dosing. Then you need to say, okay, if it's a filtration plant, from the time you do your first design, preliminary design, all the way to this thing going live, how long is that gonna take? A year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years? You have to back that down the trend line and say, when we get to this point in the water quality, it's still good for having a filtration waiver, but it doesn't matter because we need to start this work, so when we get to the point on the trend line where it's not gonna meet a filtration waiver, we've put our treatment options in place.
Yeah.
And right now, we don't know where we are. We could be past that, we could have 5 years until we have to start doing the work on the thing, we don't know.
But the quality is degrading.
It's great. I can say that confidently.
Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, so I should have an update for you next month.
It was it? We'll move on to the Watershed Protection Commission.
All right, I included in your packet an activity report prepared by our watershed manager, Danielle Olson. I'm not going to go down through it specifically. If anyone had questions, I can certainly answer those. I will say there's a lot going on. We've got a new education outreach coordinator, Evie Hopkins. She's been hired. They're working diligently to get our septic inspection program up and running. We've got an RFQ out right now for qualified septic inspectors. We're getting letters out. We're scheduling public meetings. We're getting our newsletter going. There's a lot of activity going on, which is awesome. We also secured a grant through Shore Corps, where basically we get another free employee for a period of a year to help us with all of these projects. So there's a lot of stuff going on, a lot of really positive stuff. So I'm real happy about that. One thing that I do have on the commission that I didn't have at the time that these packets were sent out is, right now we have a vacant position as a trustee representative to the Watershed Protection Commission. Dan Bilodeau was that representative. I've sent out correspondence a day or so ago of action the city council has taken, so that position is now vacant. Whether you want this to be on the next agenda, but this position needs to be filled by a trustee. It's a trustee representative to the commission. It's a 3-year term. It right now basically has 2.5 years left. So it's got till this July will be year 1, and then it's got 2 more. So there's pretty much a 3-year full term left. So whether you want to make that appointment now or you want to wait till the next meeting, I'm just throwing that out there. Is there any volunteers? I know Dennis Bergeron had put his name out there before,
Last time.
but he wasn't trustee president at the time that he put his name out there for commission rep. And I'm not gonna speak for him, and
No.
I don't
Well,
think
we
it's
haven't asked him.
fair to do that.
When's the meetings normally take place?
So they're usually every other month. Their next meeting is April 9th.
So that's before our next meeting.
It's before our next meeting. I mean, Auburn does have 2 other representatives, Camille Parrish and
Resident rep.
Evans, yeah, 2 resident reps and 1 trustee rep, so, I mean, Camille Parrish and Evan Sear. Evan was just put on in 2024, Camille was on in 2023, so she's got,
Another year.
yeah, another year or so. You know,
I mean,
again,
Mike is there
I'm there,
because.
I'm the clerk,
That's the clerk, so it's not like, I mean, if somebody wanted to do it, that'd be great. If not, we can wait and see what, Dennis will be back here in, another week?
yep.
And we can ask Dennis, and then if he wants to do it, we could appoint him at the next meeting.
If anyone else has any interest in it, you can email me and I can, you know, at the next trustee meeting, we can have that up for discussion. So I think that's where we can leave it.
Yeah, well, I might try to attend,
Okay,
Just to-
that'd be great.
you know, just check it out,
Yep.
see what it is.
Yeah, no, they're good meetings and, you know, they're only every other month, so it's not as,
Yeah,
yeah. Okay,
I was thinking I'd attend as well,
excellent.
just go check it out.
So.
They're at AV Cog, right?
Right.
Yeah, Avcog,
Yeah.
off Rodman Road,
Are they at 4 o'clock as well?
3 p.m.
3.
I'll copy you both on the next agenda.
okay.
We're good on that, Mike?
Yep.
So we can move on to the next item, CISA, Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency.
Yeah, this one kind of caught me off guard. I was contacted by the Maine Department of Homeland Security office, their CISA division. They had selected Auburn for basically an assessment, the Auburn Water and Sewer District. So it came down, it was a little intimidating. There was guys from the Navy, guys from the Army, the National Guard, and we spent 6 hours going down through all of our cybersecurity protocols, our IT work, the stuff that Computer Place does with us, and we went through it. Very thorough. And we got a very good report card. We're doing really good. Where we're lacking is in internal process. We don't have written processes for things. That's where it kind of aligns with, I'm telling we asset management IT person. We don't have an internal point of contact for IT. Right now, our point of contact is Computer Place, our consultant. They feel that we should have an internal point of contact before you go to the consultant. Somebody who can manage your stuff here and make sure you're following your procedures. But outside of that, we did very well. I do have that report, but they urged me not to share it on the internet. So if anybody would like to see that, I'd be happy to hand it to you. I learned a lot of things. I think it was a very good exercise. They are going to follow up with us on an annual basis to try to help us along. They're there to be a resource, not a, you know, we didn't get a reprimand. We didn't, you know, get any accolades. They're just there to be a resource. So we were one of 20 systems, water systems in the state selected. And I was told at the time that they did ours, we had the best systems in place. So that's huge. They said, you guys are doing a tremendous job.
That's a feather in your cap, Mike.
Well, not mine, ours.
Who paid
you know,
for
everybody-
this? Who pays for this?
I assume it's Department of Homeland Security.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
They do this on all
That's
kinds of
coming
stuff,
in.
power systems.
Not quite yet.
They do, yeah.
We were talking about that during the meetings. They were worried about different things, but they said as far as they know, the program is going to continue.
Staffing update?
Yeah, just same as last. We were fully staffed up until Randy Holmes. I think you all had a chance to sign his card. He has retired from the district after 42 years, 5 months of service. It's hard to see Randy go. He's a fixture here. We're all going to miss him. We also wanted to give some additional accolades here to some of our staff. We've just had a tremendous number of people getting their qualifications necessary for the job. Eddie Williams got his grade 1 water distribution system license. Jacob Gilbert got his grade 1 sewer collection system license, and also after this packet went out, Kevin Pratt, our water operator, got his water distribution system license. So at this time, every employee from the district now has the qualifications necessary for the job, because we do have one that we're still working with. But that's a huge change from, you know, just 3 years ago. I think you could count the number of licensed operators here on one hand, and it was mainly the upper management. But we've now brought all of our staff to in compliance with their job description, which is huge. And a lot of that credit goes towards the incentive bonus program that we introduced a couple of years ago. So anyways, that was the update. I don't know if you had anything on that?
No.
That's what I had.
Good, so, we're gonna have the executive session before the trustee open session?
Yes, that's what I had, yeah.
Okay. So, would someone like to move that we,
Yeah,
have
I
the?
move that we go to executive session in accordance to 1 MRSA 405, sub 6A, to discuss a personnel matter.
Second.
All in favor?
You're out of executive session.
So, why don't we move on to item 8, the trustee open session. I have one thing, Townsend Brook, that the culvert, that we were trying to get Lewiston to work with us on, the Townsend Brook entering into Lake Auburn. Is there anything happening with that?
I hate to say it, but it's kind of like the black hole of communications with Lewiston. I hate to say that. That's horrible for me to just say that, but I've been trying. I actually reached out to Lewiston's consultant. They have a master service agreement with 2 separate engineering firms. I actually reached out to their engineer and said, hey, do you have an agreement to work with them? Yes. I said, can we schedule a meeting? I'm losing my window of opportunity to do this work. We are not going to be able to complete the work and the deadlines for the funding given to us if we can't start discussing how we're going to do this. We would need an MOU between the 2 cities of understanding of we pay half of this, they pay half of this. We need to start the preliminary design. I think that needs to be part of our discussions when we meet with the city administrator. It's just, I've exhausted myself in trying to get a meeting to pull that in. Just so everybody knows, we received it was an MDOT. It was basically a grant for $750,000 of match money. So we would have to put up $750,000 to rebuild Lakeshore Drive and replace the culvert at Townsend Brook. The culvert has failed, the road is washing away. We accepted the funding, and we basically said, we reached out to the city of Auburn, will you help us contribute towards our half of the $750,000? They had declined that. We reached out to Lewiston to see if they would contribute towards our half of that money, and at this point I don't have an agreement with them, and I just don't think it's in the district's best interest to go it alone. It's kind of an odd thing for us to do anyways, reconstruct road, replace culverts. It's really not, it's not in our distribution system. I get it, it's on our lake, it's very important. Ultimately it's a DOT responsibility. I hate to lose,
Yeah, but just
funding.
so Bruce and Tim know. So it's a DOT responsibility, but DOT does a rolling 7-year plan. It's not in their 7-year plan. So if we went to DOT today and everyone agreed it's something that needed to be done, they'd do it in the 8th year. So Commissioner Van Note recognized the issue with this and use money that they have that they can do these local 50-50 match jobs and offer the $750,000, meaning, and we have 2 years, Mike, could do it within the 2-year period. So DOT would put up a match to whatever, half of the cost, basically up to $750,000, and it does affect water quality at the lake. So the trustees agreed to do half of the $750 that's the local match, and we're trying to get Lewiston. They've indicated they're interested in doing this, they just can't get it done.
Yeah, their budget cycle is different too than ours, so
Right.
Auburn and
This
stuff.
has been dragging on for a while, though. We assigned this agreement back in 2023. So they had all last year. They got it in. It's in their budget. It's in their CIP.
Right, but we must have signed this in 24.
23.
Because
Signed
I was here, so it had to be after January of 24.
It might. Well, we got offered it. We might not
Right.
have executed
Right,
it
right,
until.
right. So we have,
Yeah.
but the problem is, we can't do anything until they agree that they've got the money to to do this.
Right.
And to
Without
Mike's point,
falling
we're gonna
off.
run out of runway. By the time we get agreement, it's not gonna be enough time to do the work.
And if we don't do the work, then we start that 7-year.
Well, we lose the funding.
We lose the funding.
Well, we lose the funding. but
And,
we also-
and then
we
you've
also
gotta
get
go
on the
back
list,
and ask for Lake Shore Drive to be put in the DOT.
Which is, could be up to 7 years.
It's gonna be at least 7 years, because it's not in there now. And we have no guarantee that when they do their priority lift at the state level for that next year, as they roll their plan forward, it even makes the list. So,
Well, we need Auburn's mayor to go talk to the listener mayor again.
well,
You said they have it in there, budget?
I'm quite
in their
sure,
CIP
I was
request.
assured it was put in their CIP last July.
Right.
So, so why don't we just send them the MOU, have them sign it and do it?
Well, that's easier said than
Yeah.
done. You would
It
think it
also-
would be that easy.
You know, it also, like, it's like everything, I hate to, I hate to drag this, but like, it's like the SCADA. You know, it takes a lot of, we never get like the reciprocal effort. They're never after me to help them get something done for us, you know what I mean? We're always fighting to work, there's a lot of administrative work that goes into, okay, just if they agree to pay for it, okay, then I've gotta be the one to select the engineering firm. I've got to go out to bid for all this stuff. I've got to,
We never had
know.
this problem when it was Kevin Gagne and.
Oh, yes, we did.
well, he's still there, he's the public works
Well,
director.
now he's the public works director, but,
And Dave, before him, Dave.
well, I don't know about him, but we've had, when Kevin was in charge of the water division, there's no change from when Kevin was there till now.
I mean, the SCADA tech 5 years.
It's
That's
been
long.
through both iterations of
Yeah,
it,
yeah.
so, yeah, it's just,
Back along, when I was on the board before,
Right.
we never had a problem like this.
Yeah, but everything's like this, and it's in Public Works over there, and all the focus is on something else in Public Works. So this has been going on, this is a big issue, and Brian Kennereth comes on board in the 1st of May. I mean, we're not gonna be able to hit him up on the 2nd of May, but we're gonna be scheduling some, because there's some other issues that the city has with outstanding issues with Lewiston as well, so.
I was trying to get them to take the lead on this project, to be honest with you, and that's part of why I was calling their consultant, like, hey, let's,
Why don't you do something?
yeah, but,
Exactly.
instead of me dragging everybody to the finish line, can you take the lead on this one? We took the lead on getting the money, signing the agreement. Anyways, that's where I've got on that, Bob.
Good, thank you. Anybody else have anything for the trustee open session? Gone. So I guess the last item of business is item 9. Would someone like to move to adjourn?
So.
Second.
All in favor? Meeting is adjourned at 5:33 p.m.